Welcome to SpanReads, not your typical rereads podcast, a 17-shard series where we reread the Cosmere and are giant nerds about it. Today, we will be talking about Oathbringer and the connections to the Cosmere, because that's what we love talking about at all points in the time. At all points. Okay. I'm Ian, and joining me is David.
I am Windrunner.
Joshua.
Some people call me Jofwu.
And Eric.
I'm Chaos. How's it going?
And I'm Mary Ryder, and this is the last episode we're recording today, which is probably a good thing.
Well, you know.
This episode will have spoilers for the entire Cosmere. And as of recording, that the last one that was released was the Sunlit Man, I'm pretty sure.
Correct.
Yes. Nothing's come out since? Okay.
Okay, yeah. I really had to think about that for a second. It's like, has there been another Cosmere book? Oh no.
No Stormlight 5 previews.
No Stormlight 5 previews.
No Stormlight 5 previews.
Yep. Stormlight 5 is not out yet. Which you knew because this episode will be out before then.
But we will talk about Rhythm of War stuff.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes.
Who wants to start?
I want to talk about Azure. Azure's like, it was I brought up Azure in the characters one. I'm like, oh right, but all the stuff I want to say is actually Savannah. But so fascinating to actually see, presumably one of like the Yeasteel blades, right? That like like Yeasteel had the secret, but it's like it's not the same as Nightblood, or like doesn't have the same circumstances that Nightblood had. Whatever those are. And so it's very cool to see a new shard blade that she's hunting Nightblood and the person and Vasher, right?
Yeah.
And
just to say it, Azure is Vivenna from Warbreaker.
Yes. They all had the same swords master doing the same kata. And yes, it is Vivenna.
This is Azure / Vivenna is one of the things where I wish Brandon didn't blab so much, because like before Oathbringer came out, he told people that Vivenna was in the book, and so it's very obvious when you hit the person who is Vivenna that she's Vivenna. Whereas like as we've mentioned, like doing the beta read when we didn't know who this was, I'm like, who is this mysterious woman? Is this a herald? Like, what's going on? And then slowly piecing together of like, oh, that's a lot of color metaphors.
Yep. Especially post Words of Radiance, where we did figure out that Zahal was Vasher.
Yeah, she's fighting with her cloak wrapped around her arm.
Yeah, it's like, who would ever do that? It was like, hair changing. Love that.
And so cool to see her like years later, you know what I mean? Like clearly a person who is related to the Vivenna that we knew, but has experienced a lot more since then, and kind of get her meditations on walking away from leadership with Adolin. Like I feel like she is a big influence in him ultimately kind of saying like, oh, I don't want the throne in the end of this book.
Yeah. And just like I'm so into this version of Vivenna. She's so awesome. Like I love it.
Yeah.
And it's cool to me. It's cool to me how like quickly, like she just like steps into this other world and like just like sees a problem that needs to be fixed, I guess. And I like for somebody who's like relatively new to this planet, I feel like she like has things figured out fairly well.
It wasn't clear to me how long she's actually been on the planet. Did she say?
She says, I think it was a year prior.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah, but like I have a feeling like she's been in the Cosmere at large for
a while.
I don't know if we have like an exact timeline on. We know Warbreaker happens between Mistborn Era 1 and Stormlight, but that's like a 350 year span.
Yeah.
So like,
and I also, that's an old wall. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon was later like, well, that's actually, it's been a while since he's repeated that, and we know they don't have a master timeline. So, but
fair. So again, not super clear. Like I would expect like she's been around for a few decades at least.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think she's coming straight from Warbreaker to this.
Absolutely.
But like, I liked her with Adolin as like the princess who walked away from her duty.
Yeah.
Speaking to the man who is technically next in line for the throne of Alethkar. And like they have a very brief conversation, but I think it does play a significant role for him being like, I'll be High Prince, I'm not being king. At the end.
Yeah, and it just, there's so many questions that it raises. You're just like, what happened with Vasher? What, like, you know, how, you know, is she after Nightblood more? Is she after Vasher more? Like, what is their relationship now? How did things change since we've seen Warbreaker?
What's the motivation?
There's so much to wonder about there that we still are wondering about even now.
It's like, this really cements, like, it would be super nice to have Nightblood the book.
Yeah, although he always says that a lot of the things that like related to this happened after that book. Like, he'll be like, yeah, it'll kind of get into what happened. And I'm like, why would you even bother writing a sequel that doesn't cover what happens here, Brandon?
It'll be in Stormlight, I guess. It's like, yeah, okay.
Or Warbreaker's Secret History.
Warbreaker's Secret History.
Gotta go through customs.
It might be worth it for that. At this point, I almost like would rather have like I mean, I guess you can't do a sequel because who knows where Stormlight is going with like these characters, I guess. But like, I almost would like rather have like something later and then get like flashbacks of what happened, so you can just like
a Sunlight Man thing,
important, like almost. Catch me up on the important parts that are interesting, and then like
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Vivenna POV in Mistborn Era 5, I guess.
Sure.
It is now.
I'm into that. More Vivenna. That's great.
I'm done calling things by era numbers until they're already written. I'm just like, that's
probably
probably smart.
All era numbers are fake until it's published.
Fake, yes, indeed. And also, just like Nightblood is cool. Like, I don't think we learned anything new of Nightblood, but it's very cool to see just Szeth use Nightblood and stuff.
No, but like it was neat when Szeth draws Nightblood near the Pure Lake prison, the mention of colors deepening, harkening back to like Warbreaker and like color auras and all of that.
Continuity. Hell yeah.
I think, isn't at one point Nightblood mentions Shishara and stuff's like, that kind of sounds like Shalash. Like, this could be a Herald thing.
Which is a great way to handle it for Stormlight only readers.
Yeah, obviously there's the letters, which are classic. Our first rebooted Shardcast in 2017. I'll again put a card to, our video. That's just, a blank image with us talking. But what great letters. What great letters, guys. Again, just really expanding the world a lot because it's talking with 3 shards.
Yeah. Shout out to Past Me, who figured out it was autonomy, like it was a Pat G letter, and everyone being mean to me.
Yeah, so just in case you didn't know, the first letter is Endowment, talking to Hoid. The second one is Pashi, autonomy, talking with Hoid. And then the third one is Sazed, which you probably could have figured out if you read Mistborn stuff.
I think.
Yeah. He has such a distinct voice that I'm like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's the guy. We found him. Got him.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's some of the fun parts of having the same narrator. If you're listening to the audiobooks, is he can do the Sazed voice when it's time to do that.
True. True.
As long as the reader is aware of that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just a little wink. You know what I mean? Like, it's not enough to tip somebody off, but
Yeah. But I love those letters. Just Hoid trying to get help. Odium bad.
Yeah, I'm always like surprised he went to autonomy. That's continually a source of me being like, really? Like, you thought autonomy would help you?
Maybe one of the avatars, I don't know.
I think he went to an avatar he thought might be willing to help.
I guess, but you're like, you want like a little portion of the power of somebody who probably isn't your friend in the first place. You're like, that's my guy. I'm going to go to just a fragment of autonomy.
You know, beggars can't be choosers. You know?
Yeah, I guess. You know, I mean, I guess there's not a lot of friendly shards out there. It seems like they're all pretty grumpy.
That's a good summation of it, of the state of things. Yes. Grumpy or dead.
I love that Brandon chose to do like multiple responses in this one. Like after kind of setting up the expectations, this one was kind of like, I don't know. It was really fun to get hit by 3 in one sequence.
Yeah. It was similar enough in form, but it broke the pattern we were anticipating. Which was nice.
Yeah, it would have been better than like another shot back at Frost where he's like, well, I'm pissed at you for not listening to me.
Yeah.
That's definitely what I think most of us were expecting was a response to the response.
And this is definitely more interesting, for sure.
Absolutely.
Guys, what is going on with the red mist and the souls of the dead maybe fused, like bonding with Amaram's army? What is happening?
I don't think that they're so. Just for context, because there's probably some people watching this who are like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
When Shallan and Kaladin and Adolin show up, at Thelina in Shazemar, they're looking out, and there's like this
Sea of Spren.
Do they say Spren? They call them Spren.
They call them Spren. Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh no, there's a whole Ardium of an army of Odium, people here, or whatever. What are we going to do?" And then who describes it as
both Venli and the Oathgate Spren both refer to them as the souls of the dead.
Souls of the dead.
Venli thinks like they're all like really mangled up fused, and the Oathgate Spren calls them the souls of the dead. Yeah.
So at some point, like when the battle starts, Odium says like, "Oh, this is going to be my army," and like it's Sadius's / Amaram's army that's there, and like these Spren fused, whatever they are, bond with those soldiers due to the thrill in some way, and so it's really bizarre.
And Turash, shout out to Turash.
Turash, would that he appears again someday. I enjoyed him.
Yeah, I like Turash. But just saying, oh, you can bond to humans, that's just interesting considering like Ishar and Odium on Ashen. It's like, what is in like the original humans being the Voidbringers, and just what's going on with Odium magic and things? Like, I guess it didn't have to be Spren bonding, I guess.
I don't think it can. So like when I first like saw the Spren mention, I was like, oh, they're just going to be like regular Spren, and like the Unmade did something weird. The thrill like connected with these humans and like enabled Spren to like influence them in some way. Sure. But the Souls of the Dead thing is weird. But I don't think it can be fused because they say at some point that they've got 10,000 soldiers. There's no way there are 10,000 fused that they're like, oh, I've got a great idea. Let's make these fused bond with regular soldiers just to like fight and get wrecked by Shallan's.
It is inexplicable.
Shallan's fake army is going to like stop 10,000 fused. Like, terrible idea.
I mean, it's a fair point.
Yeah. They could be like non-functional fused though. You know what I mean? Like those are of limited usefulness.
Yeah. Like mindless fused, maybe. Like super insane. Yeah. Maybe.
I just don't have why would the Oathgate Spren be wrong with them being souls of the dead? Right. Venli is a person who can be wrong about things, but
the Oathgate Spren, because like Venli's allowed to be wrong. But I'm just like, what is happening? Because like it would make sense if they were just Void Spread, just influencing them. Like that would make sense. And so I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like,
I think they have to be either like fused that have been used up and are like no longer like there enough to be proper fused anymore, or like just other like Singer souls that Odium has sort of like grabbed onto over the year. Like obviously he's able to like take a Singer that has died, grab their soul and like preserve it and let it go back as a fused, right? So like maybe he's done that with other souls and just not like invested them to the point of being a fused, but they're still sort of have this cognitive shadow that has lingered, and now he's brought them there to,
I guess.
I think he could do that. Like, I mean, he could make a bunch of Singer Kelsiers that are like running around essentially. But yeah, I don't know. It's a little inexplicable. It's fun. It's a cool moment. But yeah.
Right. Like, if anything, the thing about the thrill and Amram's army being pissed off and things and them being in the emotional state, totally get all that. I'm cool with all that. Totally makes sense. I'm just like, what are those friends? What is happening there? It's very weird, much like the Queen's Guard stuff, where I'm just like, even with more knowledge, I don't understand what's happening. Just like, okay, interesting. It's like it very much some rule of cool stuff. But it does make you wonder what like Odium's old magic or void binding was, because the fused aren't void binders, guys. I know. Really shocking. We're all surprised, even though they're the void and they use void light. They are using search binding. Like, okay, cool.
Clearly, void binding is new but old of design, Eric. And
I mean, very old of design, maybe.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like, I have always kind of thought that there probably were ancient Spren on Ashen because the void Spren have human features, and I kind of figured that's where they got them from. But
right, of course.
But you never get the sense that like Ullum is like somebody who can bond with anybody. So I don't know.
Well, but like Ullum did give Venli forms, though.
That's true. That's a good point. That was that's such a weird one,
right?
What?
He did. He bonded her. He bonded. She was in. This is Rhythm of War flashbacks. He was in her gem heart for a long time.
Didn't they like capture other? I thought she was like hitting other Spren, and it just also had Ullum. The way that Timbre is like in there.
Yeah, that's what I remember. But again, also it's been a while since I've read.
We'll come back to this on the Rhythm of War.
I'm pretty sure he served as her form Spren, and
it was a little weird.
But I don't 100% know.
You know what's also weird? Us not getting like anything more about Void Spren. Just like what's going on with Void Spren?
Like we do end up getting a name for like the Screamers, which is Secret Spren.
Oh yeah.
Get names for like Ullum's variety or Yixley?
No.
No, not at all.
Brandon, name your Spren so we know how to talk about them.
We learned about Chaos Spren. They're a Chaos Spren. Those are a thing. But yeah.
I would just love to know what like the sapient Void Spren are like. And like how they interact, what their relationship is, especially because they do have human features and they're serving the fused. Like that must be some interesting variety. And
yeah, I think Venli even asked that question at one point where she's like, well, clearly the hierarchy is like fused regal singers, but where did the Void Spren fit in? And then you just never know.
I'm very interested in that.
The human features does make some sense to me given like race was human
and that the humans served Odium first, right? So like that all checks out.
But he appears as a singer to them oftentimes, you know?
Yes.
Like
race is a big fat liar.
He is, but like if you're going to make a bunch of Void Spren, you're like, I'll make them look like the people who are, who I'm trying to, like win to my side. So that's why I've always kind of thought they might be more ancient, more ashen-y. And if he'd made them when he was convincing the singers, he would have made them look more singery. But who can say?
Yeah, it's very, very hard to say. And also just like, I want more Thunderclass stuff because they're always said that the Shard Blades are for killing giant monsters. And it's like, I guess these guys, like, what's up? Especially because the blade's like the default form, right? Like that's the default radiant thing.
Kai Garnus had a lot of friends back in the day, Eric. All right.
Kai Garnus. Hell yeah. Speaking of Kai Garnus, another inexplicable term. Tissark? What are the Tissark? They're not one of the fused
They're not
brands.
the Shanayim, we would learn later. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we asked him, and I don't know Brandon knows. I'll be honest.
The Tissark is a thing Odium references towards the end where he says they're going to take... He's like, the Tissark are going to go take the Oathgate. And I like to think that they're actually just like a boy band of the Shanayim, there's like 8 of them. And like, we'll send the Tissark up there. They'll handle this.
Yeah.
12, actually, I think.
9 would be more appropriate. But yeah.
They're rebels.
They're rebels. Yeah.
That's not 10, right?
Definitely not 10. Can't be 10.
Cannot be 10. But yeah, it really makes I don't understand what those are. Well, a lot of stuff
also,
in this.
What is a Thunderclast?
What is a Thunderclast, right? What is funny in retrospect is just how sly Brandon was with the term Dawnsinger. It's like, oh, but like until you read this book, I'm like, oh yeah, of course they were a singer. It's like, yeah, obviously, but like reading this book is like, oh, that's actually really clever. I like that a lot.
Yeah, no, that worked really well.
But a lot of inexplicable stuff in Oathbringer currently that presumably we will see eventually because there's many more books left. So, like
only 7 more, plus the novellas.
Well, 6 more. Because we have Rhythm of War now. That's
true. I was talking like post this one.
Oh yeah. I'm saying it's inexplicable even considering Rhythm of War.
For sure.
Okay. Unmade. Yeah. What are they? Let's go.
Who can say? Did you want to talk about?
And then they were unmade.
That's it. That's what we got.
Yeah. Which I could have put together myself, Brandon. But
thanks for that.
Yeah, that's fine. Did you want to talk about the red mist at all, Eric?
Yes,
and
I did.
Because we kind of turned away from that. But
because there was like a lot of red mist and like with bands. It was visualized as a red mist around Scadrial, right? And then the Trell was all about the red mist. And so it's just weird that the Thrill was a big red mist that showed weird faces and things in the red mist. That was creepy. I forgot about that, right?
I am skeptical of there being anything too deep of a connection there. I'm very cognizant of there are a limited number of colors. So sometimes things end up being the same color that are related.
16 shards, only 7 colors, damn it. No.
Yeah, but some of them are.
And like red makes sense for Nergal, like as like the spirit of battle and bloodshed,
like seeing
and
red
frenzy.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It just needs to be red.
It needs to be red.
And Unmade are Eldritch Horrors. So weird mist with deformed horses and all of that. Yeah, sure.
It's just like, it's not just that it's red though, but like red mist and stuff. It's just like I don't know if there's anything there, but it's just interesting. It's just interesting. Like what was Nergal before he was unmade, right?
See, that's my thing. Is I was gonna say, I feel like the reason we see the red with autonomy is like because autonomy is associated a lot of times with kind of getting involved in corrupting stuff, and we see, and I kind of think that that's maybe what's going on with the Thrill, is that it's something that Odium corrupted. We've seen Renard and Relane's Spren, I believe, are red as well, and they are corrupted. So I think that it's more maybe we're just seeing that whatever the Thrill was before, which is a big ball of corrupted investiture now.
Because like Shalash also has a line of like the red of corrupted investiture in the air, which is like corruption of investiture is like one shard's investiture kind of co-opting another shard's. But like not all like corrupted Spren are red. They're for sure could be red. But like corrupted Pain Spren are green instead of orange.
You gotta have a variety of those enlightened Spren, right?
It's boring if they're all red.
And like some things are red naturally, like Anger Spren are naturally red, corrupted ones are black with some like fireness inside.
And I would assume that the glowing eyes of the fused being red is not about corrupted investiture, but now I don't know.
What investiture would you say the base soul of a singer's made of, Eric?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Me neither.
Something that's not Odium, maybe. I don't know. Before Odium,
maybe.
Like
they worshipped Honor first, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's just a lot of red mist after reading Lost Metal is what I'm saying. I don't know if I have a thesis here. It's just weird. Then the white mist comes and Harmony's there. It's like, that would be crazy.
Well, he actually has 2 types of mist, Eric. You're forgetting.
Oh, that's a deep cut. Deep cut.
Also, shout out to Kaladin's Windspren.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which we all thought were his shard plate, and they were. So there you go.
It's nice the community knows something.
Yeah.
I noticed them appearing in this reread a lot more than I had noticed before. Like, there's the obvious scene in the end of part 1 where he like the storm's coming and he like pulls this, this wind sprinter there. And he like makes a shield or whatever. Very obvious. But there's a lot of other scenes where when he's on Honor's path, the wind sprinter there, and I guess I just didn't think much of it. Rare. Like, oh, Kaladin draws the wind sprint because he's Kaladin or whatever. But it's definitely his shard plate that are just hanging out, like ready to be there when he says his 4th ideal. Because when he's struggling to speak the 4th ideal in Shadesmar, there's some wind sprint that show up again.
Nice. Cool.
I think some show up during the battle with Amaram. There was several places where I was like, oh, there's wind sprint that are there, waiting for him to say his ideal. And
I like that. Choked, that's good. Good foreshadowing. Even though we all picked up on that, and like we all imagined that the wind spread were the shard plate. Like that wasn't a mystery.
Yeah. Well, once you're like Sprenner shard blades, you're like, and what could be the shard plate?
Exactly. Like how could it be anything else? But still, Rhythm of War, they got me. It was still really cool, even though we knew what really cool answer was. But yeah, they were all there the whole time.
Mm-hmm. And I loved how excited the Honors friend were to see them. That was kind of a fun, like, little cultural moment too, where they're like, "Oh, these are really rare on our side. Like, we've never seen Windsprint." And Calda's like, "They're just Windsprint, guys."
Yeah, it's kind of a nice dichotomy of like most Spren are mostly in the cognitive and just a little bleeds through, but Windspren are just so fully physical.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense. There's not wind there.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense too when you think about how much more intelligent and interactive they are. You're like, oh, it's probably because their minds are mostly on the physical realm side, and other Spren are probably still primarily in Shadesmar. And I bet they're special. They're form Spren too, aren't they? Aren't they the nimble form Spren?
That sounds right. Yeah.
I think that's brought up in Rhythm of War. They get to be, and they're the plate Spren. They're special. They're just a little extra smart.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just never can quite remember what are properties of Windspren or just Syl. Like, I think that's what gets me. But I also did not reread Way of Kings and Words of Radiance for this show. So
yeah, I think the Windspren and the River Spren talk to people sometimes. Or they do just like little stuff, or they play pranks.
Yeah. Because there is that. Yep, for sure. Yeah. And there's not much to say, but design is in the book, and Hoyd got her right here in Kolnar.
Oh yeah, like we do get a little bit more about like Wit's whole deal, which is like, I swore to be there when I was needed. I just didn't know that there would be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which seems like obviously that's referring to whatever fortune powers he has to know where he needs to be. But it's like, it's interesting that he phrased it that way, right?
We did see Hoyd using several more powers, I guess. I mean, Hoyd brought White Sand into the story.
Yep.
Hoyd did Awakening. We knew he was like that. He had breath from before, but this is the first time we saw him awaken. So there was. Like, I'm forgetting something else that he did too, but
there is some mention of like his Dawnshard healing, which he can suppress apparently temporarily.
Oh, right, because of the epilogue. Yeah. Right. Yep.
Yeah, he's good from instantly regrowing. Also, I do want to point out that swearing to be there when you're needed is also the second ideal of the Stone Wards, which is interesting.
God, Hoyd Stoneward is a trippy thing to think about. That one, yeah. It's interesting that his fortune powers drew him to get design. Isn't that interesting? Because it felt to me like Hoyd really wanted to be a real Lightweaver for a really long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just interesting that whatever these fortune / destiny / spiritual mumbo jumbo powers is like, yeah, that's a good idea. You should go do that. So it's like, what's
Maybe
going on?
Maybe he stole someone's destiny, Eric, and he was like, "I've got a little destiny spike in me, and now I am
he's got his bandolier of spikes."
Yeah, he took Alucard's destiny.
There is the thing about him having light weaving from 2 different sources, like, does start breaking some of the rules.
Yeah, sure.
Which maybe that's going to be necessary in the future of the Cosmere.
Yes. Yeah, and you do see before he gets designed, like his light weaving isn't all that successful. Like he's trying to do a little light weaving with Shallan for the girl who looked up moment, and he's kind of like, can you give me a little help here? He's not able to do his elaborate illusions at that point.
That in Rhythm before, he's like, it's almost too easy now.
That's the story of Hoy's life is obtaining the magical powers that he has long sought and then complaining about it being too easy now.
True. Very true. I mean, would it be Hoyt if he didn't complain about a thing, right?
Silver Chain is most likely a continuity chain.
Probably a continuity chain.
Yeah. Crops up potentially in Rhythm of War as the gift from Mraize to Raboniel.
I thought the
item.
The Nephra's painting that Kaladin sees is really weird. Like, that's something that, I don't know, is never really, like, there's clearly something magical.
I mean,
they do that.
The painting from Warbreaker.
Yeah,
right.
They can do that if you're highly invested.
So it's just like, if anybody in the Cosmere who is super invested sees weird things in these paintings.
Yep.
But what makes the painting be that way?
So it's usually made by somebody who themselves has a lot of breath. Like, he's mentioned this, that somebody who is influenced by breath, when they create a painting like that, I think it's in the Warbreaker annotations.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, can put like a little piece of their soul into it, and that's why like Lightsong is able to see the Battle of Twilight Falls for what it is, and he's seeing Nightblood in there, even though it probably wasn't something the painter put in themselves.
I'm just like, and is it? I guess it's like associated with Awakening specifically.
Yeah, maybe? I think at least the creation of these paintings specifically.
It's just like a weird, apparently it's like an ability of an Awakener that we've never seen come up again, which I just had never thought of it that way before.
It's probably
it's
just some weird spiritual mumbo jumbo of like putting your soul into the art and stuff. And if you're highly invested enough, like, weird things can happen. Okay.
This getting into Brandon being a more soft magic person than people think, and also Brandon being an artist. Art is weird.
Okay, here I got it.
Ooh, hell yeah!
I'll read it. Yeah, this is from the Goodreads Fantasy Book Discussion Warbreaker from 2010. Same Q&A where we learned the word endowment.
Hell yeah!
As the shard.
We got an endowment letter. We're bringing this episode together, David. Hell yeah!
Right? Yeah, tying all the things together. Is the artist that painted those paintings Hoyd? They're basically asking about the one that Lightsong saw. And Brandon said, Hoy did not make the paintings. The goal of those paintings, and this is spoiler, by the way, the paintings are actually what the text implies there. They are abstract paintings which Lightsong, having a touch of the divine, is able to see and read into things that aren't necessarily there. Beyond that, art is a magical thing in the world of Warbreaker. When an artist creates a work of art, part of the artist's soul ends up in the artwork. Someone who has many breaths and whose return like Lightsong has the inherent ability to see into the art and perceive that. So Lightsong can interpret correctly an abstract piece based on what the artist is trying to convey in a way that a normal person couldn't.
So it's not awakening. It's just, I guess, like the artist has breath. It's like it's inherent part of the world. And so they're putting a little bit of like this intent into the painting, right? And so someone that's invested can read that intent. And there's probably some connection with the spiritual realm or something, so you can see weird stuff.
Yeah, they didn't awaken the painting. I think you could probably make an argument in that, it's not directly awakening, I would say, but it's definitely something that's influenced by breath.
It's just interesting that it's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of fun though. It is one of those more like magical things that Brandon does.
Yeah. Oh, we should talk about Rhino. It's like a whole we gotta talk about that guy. Because he's
so crazy. No, just so crazy that he is the guy from Elantris.
Yeah,
that to me is the weirdest part.
He's literally the Hoed. Yeah.
The Hoed that is like so beautiful. It was so beautiful once, and they just chuck him into the pool, and somehow he ends up. he survives the plasma storm that is the Celish cognitive realm, and wound up on Roshar.
Sure.
Okay, doing fortunes in a lighthouse, as you do.
And what was that line?
Like so crazy because I can't remember like Brandon's exact phrasing on that, but I feel like the way he like revealed that for the first time, there was an implication of like, oh yeah, this is a thing you guys know. I'm like,
classic.
How on earth would any of us?
Well, he's an Elantrian, so you know.
Yeah, no, he dropped it. I remember that clearly. He was like, oh, and a cameo from our so very beautiful friend. And everyone was like, wait, does this mean that this is the guy from Elantris? Like, nobody was asking that. Nobody was theorizing that.
You guys knew that, right?
He was an Elantrian because his name's an Aeon. So
our memorable friend.
And like he has this weird orb that has some connection, and he's complaining that you shouldn't touch it, but unless he's trained, but if it's invested, you can see stuff, I guess, during the high storm, which makes sense, right? The high storm pierces all three realms. You get a glimpse into the spiritual. Sure, fine. That seems fine. Elantrians can make weird orbs, so sure.
That's kind of their whole thing.
Yeah. Interesting choice being on that random peninsula, though. There, right? It's like interesting choice, but okay.
Yeah. The goals of the Weiry are mysterious indeed.
Yeah, because he's literally a member of the Weiry as well. We know that as well.
Yeah, he's the one who's in bad standing, where they're like, you need to watch the remote lighthouse fort. Like that's your job.
What?
You need to go promote good relations with the peoples of Roshar, and his idea of how to do that was, I'm going to be in the middle of nowhere and I will give visions of the future to the people who hate visions of the future.
See,
it's an interesting business model there. I don't know how mentally stable this guy is. I'll be totally honest. Still,
well, I feel like he can't have been one of their favorites. Otherwise, the Weiry wouldn't have left him to rot for 10 years in Elantris. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure he came through the perpendicular, and they were like, "Oh, it's Rhino. Sorry, we couldn't come get you." Like we always meant to come back.
I always assumed he joined them after.
It's possible,
just for that reason. Maybe.
I never know what's going on with the historical Weiry and post Elantris stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, like I've always had it in mind. Like the Weiry is a post cell. Like you can only join once you like go into the pool and like depart the physical realm.
Okay.
And like leave behind the mortal plane.
Survive the plasma storm, and then you're in.
Like before the Elantris fell, though. You know what I mean? Like I kind of figured they were an existing organization prior to that. Maybe that's not true.
Oh, I do agree. I just think like it's a retirement program off world.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Like, I don't think the Weiry were actively involved like within Elantris itself.
Interesting. We may never know.
Maybe.
Why is Hoyd so like, you should not trust anyone who sees the future? I'm like, you have so many you have weird fortune stuff where you know to go. Like, what's your problem, bro?
I think this is a do not trust anything not set in metal situation where it's like, I mean, there's probably situations where like it's totally fine like to trust somebody with visions of future. It's just the times where it very much is a bad thing to do that are in terms of magnitude way worse. So it's like, just by default mistrust this, and sure, you'll miss out on some like slight nice things, but you'll definitely avoid the very, very, very bad things.
I guess, but like it's a good thing Alen trusted the vision of the future he had, because then he did the right thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like, what is Hoyd what happened with Hoid and Odium that Hoid's like, yeah, don't do that. Because like maybe he's saying in the context of Roshar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all visions of the future is Odium stuff, and you can't trust Odium because reasons. But honestly, it doesn't feel like the visions of the future are that big of a problem. I don't know. I don't really get it personally.
Yeah, no, they've only been helpful so far. Well, maybe I guess we'll see.
I could also kind of see Hoid is very good for Shallan, I think.
Mhm.
Like he's like very not paternal, but like very much of a caretaker role, like trying to like help her out. So like I think there may be an element of that, of like don't trust people like who claim to see the future because like they probably have like ulterior motives, maybe.
It's really just one of those questions that I really want answered eventually in Stormlights. Like, what's going on with the visions of the future and why everyone's so scared of it? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree,
Well,
Eric. I also wonder that.
Like I do think most of it is that like this is like Odium's thing. Like, yes, all shards can do this to an extent, but like a lot of Odium's magic specifically focus on it.
Yeah.
I guess, but it's not the ones we really see. You know what I mean? It'd probably be helpful if like the night forms were doing stuff, or like, you know, stuff like that. Like just day to day, we see a lot more Fuse just doing the same stuff the Radiants do.
Shout out to the night
So it's like
form
it's not like
guards.
the visions of the future themselves that are like culturally speaking, it's like people remember like foretelling the future is bad. When like no, it's not. It's just like highly indicative of Odium mucking around with things, and like he's the guy you want to avoid. So like this is like often an indicator of that, and people forgot about Odium and just remembered like, hey, we don't like this for some reason.
Yeah.
It must be bad.
Like I could see that, but then Hoyd doubles down on the don't trust the people who can do the future thing. So it's like must also be an actual piece of advice.
I think that's potentially like him saying like, don't trust me.
Well, that's definitely part of it for sure. That's like the part of it that I enjoy and that makes sense to me, is that he's kind of like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be trusting me as well. Like I'm making that point, but
yeah,
this is where like I wish Brandon still had time to do annotations to like talk about all this stuff, but it's never going to happen.
Where he just
because he writes things like White Sand Prime for the 15th.
Right. He might write some paragraphs on Reddit as sample chapters come out, Ian, and that'll be it.
But that's all going to be for like the beginning chapters.
I want an annotation where Brandon just does 3 paragraphs where he just spitballs as to what the Tissark are, and then we just is like, oh yeah, and the Tissark are totally these guys. I'm like, okay. Maybe it's in his notes somewhere, I hope.
No, it's not. No, it's definitely not.
Yeah, you know. Anyway, Oathbringer, good book, actually.
It is a good book.
I very much enjoyed rereading it, and we'll have some Rhythm of War stuff as well.
I'm very excited to reread Rhythm of War. I'm very excited to reread Dawnshard because I haven't read that since that came out either.
It's that weird post 2020 where it's like, I feel like I haven't had time to reread Brandon books, but also he keeps putting out books. So it's like, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. He has been busy.
Been a lot of work to do, let's say. So much work to do.
Well, thank you for watching this Oathbringer SpanReads. You can find us at 17shard.com for all the news, discussion, theories, and of course, fun that you could ever want. You can find us on social media, SoundCloud. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can subscribe on YouTube, and you can also support us on Patreon. See you next time. Bye.
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 Peace.